Hello, everybody. My name's Corey Kramer. This is the Cyclical Investors Club, and today we're going to be looking at Occidental Petroleum stock. This stock is my first buy for 2024, but it will be either a partial position or an initial position that I'm willing to add to over time. And it has a little bit of an unusual setup that I think offers a good risk reward compared to other alternatives. So the basic thing we want to start with is, as always, this isn't individual investing advice. This is just how I analyze stocks, and I'm telling everybody else basically why I bought the stock to start the year after not buying it for a long time. These guys are an oil and gas producer in the U.S., mostly in the Permian Basin. And I haven't really bought many oil stocks for the past, I bought a bunch of refiners in 2020 and then took profits. And so these past 2 years, really, I haven't bought much. But I think that, and this isn't going to be like a normal cyclical investment like it normally would. So if you look at these earnings, they're very volatile, very cyclical. Usually oil stocks are that way. We had two big up cycles in 2007, and then when fracking and everything came into being, then we had the Great Recession, and then energy bounced back again. And then it got to the point where the Saudi Arabia basically started pumping as much oil as they could to try to get the price down, try to break the back of some of these frackers because Saudi Arabia can produce cheaper oil. So they were successful in that. A lot of these companies struggled. I think a few of them are still going bankrupt. And we had this gigantic down cycle in oil. And then obviously COVID, we had negative oil, kind of a fluky thing, but so that extended what was actually recovering to some degree. And then COVID kind of extended it down. Also, when Donald Trump was president, he was very big on oil prices staying low. He basically did whatever he needed to. If he needed to go to Saudi Arabia, talk to them, kiss their behinds a little bit to get the oil price down, he was definitely willing to do that. So when you take all those things together, oil had a super cyclical downturn. And then we had the reopening from COVID. So we have this reopening. And if you look at the big picture of earnings and price, we're basically, with Oxy, we're right average. I think this is like a fair value price. So this is unusual this isn't really even part of my normal cyclical investing strategy. One of the reasons I held off, I actually sold most of my oil stocks around here. I had Valero. I actually made videos on these. I had Valero, Holly Frontier, which is now HF Sinclair, Phillips 66. So I had a bunch of them. After we had the reopening, I sold those, and I've kind of just been sitting around since then doing nothing the past couple of years, which has kind of been the right call. These stocks haven't really gone anywhere. So, and earnings came down after the big spike. So, but now we're kind of at average levels. So the story here is twofold. I think reshoring, geopolitics, we see what's going on in the Red Sea right now. We just had a tanker get, taken by Iran. It sounds like today, it's early, so this might be wrong, might not be completely accurate. We have strikes against all kinds of things going on and all kinds of problems in the Middle East. In some ways, nothing new. We also have Ukraine, Russia, which is a big oil producer. And the story goes on and on. So we can see the risks are there. Also, the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we use a lot of that to bring oil prices down because people don't like inflation. And it happened pretty quickly. So our oil supplies are depleted, and our oil suppliers are making a lot of oil right now in the U.S. So we're kind of, I don't know if we're at full capacity or whatever, but we're producing a lot of oil. We're using it. The prices have come down. like gasoline and everything. But the risks have actually gone up globally, which is interesting to me. Okay? So, the way I would think about this is with most oil companies, the international ones have extra risk because they have to ship their oil from wherever it's produced to whoever's using it, which is risky and may get riskier or more expensive, at least. In the US, we can just use it all because we use all the oil we can possibly get. If it's cheaper, we use more usually. So, unless it's a recession or something like that. So, I think being US focused is important here, and these guys are, because it's right at the source. Also, these types of wells, which you've heard, I'm going to talk some about Warren Buffett here in just a second too, but as he pointed out at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting, they don't really last too long. So these guys can actually adjust their output within a couple years to changing demand so that they're not overproducing for a long period of time. That type of situation can reduce the risk of this type of earnings decline. But you can see even when earnings fell, the stock price didn't really get that low. It's basically right. I mean, if you go back to 2017 during the trough there, it's right about the same level that it is right now. So, and then we just count COVID as like a fluke, sort of. But flukes can happen again. But here's the thing. Warren has been buying this stock at this under $57. He's been buying it even more than 57, but let's call it under 60, between 60 and $56 for the past couple of years. So whenever the stock gets down, 57, 56, Warren buys a bunch of shares. So Berkshire Hathaway owns 34% of the company as of the reporting yesterday. They're able to go probably as much as they want to, but it looks like they're going to go up to 50% ultimately, or potentially. If these guys are buying back shares, it's possible Berkshire might do what it did with Apple and kind of, instead of going over that 10% level, stop at like 5%. There's like reporting things and things like that. Maybe some other reasons why Berkshire might not want to own the entire company. I think they've said they don't, or maybe even own a majority stake. So right now they're saying they're willing to buy up to 50%. So they're going to keep buying, probably. It looks like it's just on autopilot here. They also have warrants to buy stock at this level too. I don't know when. I didn't look at when they struck or whatever, but this is basically the price Berkshire thinks it's a good deal. So what we have is a situation where if we have an oil spike, an energy spike, which will ultimately come down because it will probably crush the economy, but it could last a couple years. We saw that happen in 2007 and 2008. Oil energy prices can stay high for a while, and people will just do what they can to pay them until it eventually kind of eats away at everybody's money and they can't afford to run the economy anymore or pay their bills. But that takes a while. So if we have an energy spike like that, I see upside, for the stock. Who knows? It could go back to levels back here, up to $100 a share or whatever. So in that case, maybe let's just say it's like a 50% upside potential from here. It could be 100%. I mean, 113 is 100% return from here. So that's a scenario if there's an energy spike. And also that will probably hurt the rest of businesses that aren't energy companies. So it could be a really good balance in a person's portfolio, even if the rest of the portfolio is doing poorly. To have some stocks that do extraordinarily well can help make up for that and balance some of that. So that's the upside, medium-term upside potential. It's a little bit of insurance, and a little bit of potential gains in that respect. Now, for the near term, Berkshire keeps buying the stock, so it's not going to go below $56 per share for long before they buy more, until they hit that 50% level. So you have, in the event that, let's say there's a bad recession, something like that, that inflation comes down, global cooperation, it sounds like a fairy tale, right? Global cooperation starts. We go back to pre-pandemic relationships with China, and their economy picks up, and they demand oil. Like if everything all it works out, then maybe we won't have any kind of recession or slowdown or whatever. But if it does, at least you have somebody coming in and supporting the shares a little bit. So you have a little bit of a put, at least until Warren stops buying. And then we could get a spike, another spike down potentially. So in the price, if things are going poorly. And at that point, I think that's when you start treating it like a deep cyclical. Then you start aiming for these price points down here, like 50% lower than where it is now. But we aren't there yet. So I wouldn't like completely load up on this price. I would buy like maybe half a position here. For me, it's like a 1% or 2% position since I don't have much other oil exposure. And then, but I still have cash. So if we do have some calamity and Berkshire stops buying maybe at that 50% level and the stock price falls 50%, then I would be willing to come in and add some more. These guys are just well positioned, I think. I mean, they're in the heart of the U.S., which is the best consumer for energy. They have no real like serious regulations that they have to. They would probably laugh at if I said. I mean, they don't have the same sort of logistical and governmental problems that other oil producers in different parts of the world are gonna have, because the U.S. is business friendly. If anything, it's only going to get more business friendly if a different administration comes in. So, especially with regard to oil and drilling and all that, we're all like, yeah, go oil. So, they also have like carbon capture technology that they're working on. I saw a note where they were going to be selling carbon-free oil, where they had basically captured the same amount of carbon that the oil would produce, when it was burned. So people that are into that kind of thing, like stopping greenhouse gases and things, they potentially have a product they can sell at a higher price than oil. So it's not commoditized. Okay, so now you have another benefit. There's just a lot of little things going on here that I think look good, especially for a person that doesn't have much oil exposure in their portfolio. So yeah, that's the long and short of it. I think under $60, it's good, and then withhold a little bit of cash, and be prepared to add if we get that downturn and Berkshire Hathaway stops buying, and then we'll treat it more cyclically. But I think right now the downside risk this next year is limited. The upside could be 100% in some situations. So I like that setup, and that's why I bought some stock this year. All right. If anybody has any questions, drop them in the comments section, and I'll see everybody later. Bye.